221 page. Page number 221. We start with 21 Tara. We pray for the Tara to benefit all sentient beings, or particularly for our goals become quickly whatever we wish or successful. Therefore, we pray for Mother Tara to once. Okay, slowly also. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, my precious all the stars with their roses shine like lotus.
Page 245, the benefits.
Whoever is endowed
Okay, good job. This is for us, puja for our goals. You can several centuries, but particularly our goals become success. Also, how temperature? Because hard, warm, cold. You think we need education? Otherwise, the temperature is very hot, you fall asleep. If you sleep, then maybe you do very big snoring, then never sleep completely. Anyway, I think that tomorrow is the Buddha give teaching, first teaching this world, tomorrow. And he achieved enlightenment, the Tibetan month is 4 months, and the 4 months and the 15th. Remember you guys, we did last 2 months, correct? Then he didn't teach to 6 or 7 weeks. And because during that time, no one understood what he talked about. He said, I got very special, happiness, enlightenment, very powerful teaching, but no one understands. Therefore, I just keep that, and he do on meditation or anything. He doesn't teach on the way, because during that time, people are not ability to understand. Same, we come here first and we don't know what's going on. We just follow, jump, same. Then after then, not somebody getting to do Mankani. They wanted to treat me, they don't know where they are. That's something they ask. This one, that's just one of this.
So after some time, then the gods like Indra and Brahman, they came with the offering to request for the teaching. And so that time, then he realized that now it is time to benefit sentiently. So then he started to give teaching. So tomorrow will be the first day that he gave teaching after he achieved enlightenment.
What did he buy the? And that's something we say teaching
and so therefore it is considered as a very special day tomorrow.
And I'm doing my chicken, Sanjay Jumde, the chew. Go, Mari, Mamma, Kadi, so well, Hako, Mari, Mamma, Kadi, so well, Hako, Maris. In another teach you the Chugula, Sugar, the Yamanche, Lojo, talk about some cigarettes.
So there are many beings and many people in this world who have not heard about Buddha's teaching at all, or who doesn't believe in and so forth. And so, but But there are some people who believe in, but who have not been able to have access to the Dharma teachings and so forth. But we are very fortunate that we not only believe in the teaching, but also have access to the teachings and have opportunity to study and practice and so forth. So therefore, we are very fortunate to have that opportunity. And so, when he first gave the teaching, there were only 5 disciples. And what he taught about at that time was the Four Noble Truths. And so, all the things that is to be abandoned and that is to be adopted or cultivated are all included in these Four Noble Truths. So if we combine all sentient beings into, if you just combine them, you can combine them all into 3 different types. I don't know if you agree or not. So do you understand what I mean, like combine into 3 different types? Type of sentient beings?
You have any idea what I talk about?
So, for example, we can say that everything that exists can be, combined into 2. What are the 2?
You mean divided or combined?
Divided, yeah.
What are the 2?
Man and woman?
No.
Female and...
For the existence?
Wisdom and
For the existence.
All existence. All existence.
For everything that exists, you can divide into 2.
2, right?
Object and object together.
You're a genius.
This is all makes sense, yeah. But I'm not thinking about that. This is all good. So,
so you can, when you say divide, these 2 have to be separate, but object possessor is also object, so you can't divide that way. So the object possessor is also included in the object. Or you can just say permanent things and impermanent things. So everything's divided into those 2. So either if it exists, it has to be the permanent or it has to be the impermanent. Right? Can you say that? Can we say that? You agree?
Agree?
And so just like that, if you combine or divide all sentient beings, it can be divided into 3 different types.
What do you say? He
What are the 3 types?
doesn't find one.
Yeah, you said it, right, Emmanuel? You said male and female, and then what? Well, what is that in between? Oh, that has both male and female. What do you call that?
hermaphrodite?
What's that? Male, female, and what's that? Well, beings who's not male, not female, or both has
Hermaphrodite. It has to be hermaphrodite. Because...
What is it? How is it that word?
Hermaphrodite.
Hermaphrodite?
Yeah.
So if it is sentient being, it has to be either of those 3, right? Can we say that?
Can you find something?
Can you find somebody, a sentient being who is not male or female or hermaphrodite?
Yeah, because hermaphrodite is in the middle because they have female and men parts, but they have the full.
Yeah, that's right.
So it would be that.
Okay.
Is there other word for that? I don't remember. I don't know this word. Hermaphrodite.
Hermaphrodite.
Anyway, this is just we talk about, just logically, what's going on in our words.
So anyway, just like that, we have the things to be abandoned and things to be adopted, right?
And
so to abandon what is to be abandoned, right? What has to be abandoned, and we have to cultivate what is to be cultivated. And so if you don't cultivate what is to be cultivated, then you will not be able to achieve enlightenment. And if you don't abandon what is to be abandoned, you will not be able to achieve enlightenment because you still have all these things, abandonments that is causing obstacles in your way. And so all the teachings about Buddhism is all included in these two, like what is to be abandoned and what is to be cultivated. So that's included in Four Noble Truths. And so the basis of all these teachings, the Buddha is the Four Noble Truths. So we as sentient beings were circling or wandering in cyclic existence now, right? Samsara. So if we are free from cyclic existence or samsara, then we achieve happiness. And so there's this cause and effect. The cause that causes one to born in cyclic existence, and the effect is the result that we experience after being born in cyclic existence. And so it's just a simple example of the samsara or cyclism would be our own contaminated aggregate and the mind. And so because we have these contaminated aggregates, therefore we experience these sufferings. And so these contaminated aggregates that we have, where do they come from? They don't come from any cause and without any cause and conditions, right? So they have a cause and condition that gives, that brings these contaminated aggregates into existence, and those are the true origin. The true origin is the cause. And so in that origin, there are two types. So it is not only the delusions, there are also the karma. So the karma and delusion, two together, brings all these sufferings to us. And so therefore, in origin, there are two, the karma and delusion. So first you have the delusion, and then through delusion you create the karma. So the delusion here is like being deluded, right? And not knowing or being ignorant. So if we don't know, if we are ignorant, then we do with out of ignorance, then we always face problems, right? So all the karma that we have created, all the the negative karma that we create, is all through ignorance. Without knowing, then we engage in this action, thinking that this is the right, and then we do that, or thinking that this will bring happiness, we do that, and then as a result, we always experience suffering. So then the karma, there are so many different kind of divisions about the karma. So one way of dividing the karma is there are like three different types: meritorious karma or non-meritorious karma, and I call it immovable karma. And so the karma that brings results as in the low run is the non-meritorious karma, and then the karma that brings a result as a rebirth in the upper realm, like human, God, and demigod, and so forth, would be of the desired realm, would be the meritorious karma, and then immovable karma is the karma that brings the results of rebirth in the higher realms, such as the formless and formless realms.
그래서 다들 근주에서 가지 근주에서 다 용어가 끝내상 나면 내지 싸셔와야나 아니 되게 저거다 다 두자는 거 그래서 가지 근데 봐지 거 그래서 와.
And so it's called the origin of all the suffering. So the suffering, all the suffering comes from this origin. So those are the karma and delusions. So out of the delusion, then you create a karma, and then you, as a result of that karma, you experience suffering.
되게 저거다 동아변다 만성만도라 문제는 동아변다 다 되게 제대로 근주에서 되게 저거다 동아서로 와.
And so the cause is the origin, the delusion and karma, and then the result, is the suffering, the true suffering.
다 사실 좀 내가 담보 주소도 말아 아니 누가 시바 자송이 그래서 누가 시바 제스.
So first, when he taught the teaching, when Buddha taught the teaching, he says, understand the suffering.
가르치는 누가 시바 제고 세는 저처럼 나스 봐.
So where do we have to understand suffering?
가시 누가 시와이나 누가 다 이로 제거라 봐.
So the reason is because if we understand the suffering, if we know the suffering as suffering, then we'll have the wish to be free from the suffering. So if we don't understand the suffering as a suffering, then we will not have a wish to be free from that. So just like if somebody is sick, you have to first find out the disease, right? And so like in this country, even if the person is very sick and is about to die, still the doctors don't give medicine until they find out what is the disease, right?
If you go to India, they give immediately injection. No, it's very good. I don't get all. Also you can buy the medicines on the small stores. And here, different way. Even very similar. Maybe they give just painkiller, right? Painkiller. Is it painkiller? No, otherwise, they don't have any medicines real the sickness because they doesn't know what cause, what sickness.
What's the disease? So first you have to find out the disease, right? What's causing the pain? And so therefore Buddha said that the suffering is same as the sickness. So first you have to understand the suffering. So now you have to understand about the suffering. So what kind of sufferings are there? So all the sufferings that we experience can be, again, divided into three. And so those three are the suffering, suffering of change, and all-pervasive suffering. So the suffering of suffering will be, the suffering that we experience. We know or understand as suffering, like the headache, pain, the backache, knee ache, and so forth. So all these kind of pains that we experience is the suffering of suffering. So that kind of suffering is understood by most of the beings, and they all have wish to be free from that. And so then the suffering of change, which is a little more difficult to understand, is the suffering, is the happiness, is the happiness that is the happiness that we think as happiness, and that which we think is happiness, but in reality, it's a suffering. It changes into suffering, right? So we think that it's a happiness, and we pursue that, and when we experience that, and after some time it changes into suffering. So that's the suffering of change. So, for example, the example of the suffering of change, you would think that if we find a big piece of diamond, we'll be very happy, right?
Right. If your husband or wife, you give you the big diamond, they're very, very, very happy, right? Very spice, very happy. Yena young, they are the kitchen, Nipan, Sentinel, this water, Kumakiro, and Tangi Kawashawi. Middle Tondo, and the child winner from Sentinel.
So, but the second moment of obtaining that, you already start to worry about it. So what will happen? Where should I keep it? Where should I find a safe place to keep it? Maybe somebody might steal it, or somebody might rob it, and so forth. So thinking that, you already develop so much worries.
Do you guys this that kind of something?
So do you have that kind of experience?
You got the damage. Right? Also, for example, other ones, the lotteries, they win maybe hundreds, thousands, millions, First, they're very excited, very, very happy. But secondly, they start to worry. Maybe someone come to the rock, maybe they kill, And they are catching also the one who's and they could
So anyway, suffering of change is something that we consider as happiness, and which later changes into suffering. And it's called suffering of change.
Right? Now you guys see, to go stay here, right? They're very comfortable. But you're still not comfortable, I'm checking that. Look like that, We think about this is more happy than but continue.
So if you keep on going on that in that position, then you feel suffering again. And so that is in Buddhism that is considered as suffering. And so the all-pervasive suffering, is the most difficult to understand, and that actually is the body, the contaminated area that we have itself, is the all-pervasive suffering.
그래서나 네 잡아지 동안나 아니 다 그래 잡아서나 다 고인의 감각을 잡아서 늦지 동안 네가 깨워다 동안 한 명이 아니 떼셔 봐 심하게 제셔 봐야 아니 다 잡아 되지 동안으로
And so all pervasive suffering is pervasive, it's pervaded all over the three realms of existence. And so wherever you are born, as long as you have this contaminated aggregate, you have that suffering. So that's because of that, because of the fact that we have that contaminated aggregate, and this because of this, and then we experience all the sufferings. If we don't have that, we don't experience them. So this serves as a basis for the sufferings, and also it serves as a cause for the later sufferings. So these are the three types of sufferings. So anything we don't desire or wish is called suffering, right? So we all have many things that we don't like or we don't want, right? You have many things you don't want. But even though we don't want, we still have to go through it, right? Just experience it. For example, even though we don't want to age, we still age, right? We grow older and older every day.
Right. And then
nobody wants to die, but everybody has to die, right? So there are many things that even though we don't want, we still have to go through it. So those are the general suffering of the cyclic existence. And so then there is the particular suffering of each type of beings, right? The human beings have their particular sufferings, the animals, and so forth, right? And so there's these sufferings of not getting along with with our friends, or our partners, spouse, and so forth. Even though we don't want to get into that kind of fight or an argument and so forth, but it So we don't want to get sick, but we fall sick, right?
나사 세야 시당 만두질라 어디도 된지 인자 가지 체 충원에 충원 가지 다 누가 명예진 가도 생지 신체 거바이시 요 말해서
And so there is always there is some kind of suffering, either small or big all the time. So as long as one is in cyclic existence or samsara, one can never be free from suffering.
저도 제게 되었어야 maybe 단단 만두 담을래라 지금 뭐 깨라 채우라고 됐어. 근데 빼줘고는 깨라 쳤지. 그래 빌드로.
Bilgit.
Who's the wealthiest person that maybe Bilgit, right?
Wealthiest person.
Wealthiest person.
One of the wealthiest person. Richest person in the world is what? Bilgit.
Do you think he has, I don't know if he's rich, but do you think he has what suffering or not? No? Corona the 미시 가지고 코로나 갖게 자 말래요. 삼야당. 야, 그런 사람가 말고 또 두는 뭐 여러 해서.
So of course he has a lot of suffering, like the suffering of suffering, like the pain, the headache, the stomach ache, and so forth. So on top of that, he has the biggest suffering in his case, would be like the competition, the competitiveness, thinking that somebody might, come, higher or richer than him, and so forth.
당어도 리마데 저한테 배다 뭐 깨라치 모르고다 프로그램도 뭐 깨라치로 세우려 왔어.
So, and then also the famous person, let's say the president of the United States, would be considered as one of the most famous person in the world, right?
그래서 나 아메리카에 다 대상 담배 가는 게 다 공부 이세계 가지 가가 까담이 잘 왔어. 뒤는 공부에 컴퓨터 깨라치 모르고 왔어.
Because America, the United States, is considered as one of the most powerful countries, who is also like kind of ruling or controlling many other countries, and the president is the highest of this country. Therefore, he's like considered as the most famous person, right?
야, 뭐 계속서 야다 그 지금 뭐 계속 그렇게 많이 본 거다. 대고 이제 가고.
So that's in general, right? But personally, people might think in different way, right? And they might think that here he's not famous. Some people.
옛날야, 나 콜라 생기 여러 요 맛 강해.
But does he have worry or not? Or does he have suffering or not?
근데에서 가지 깨를 쳐봐야 양 깨를 쳐외게 두마 추와에는 추와게 두마 다 두마 설명을 좀 해봐야 말이야.
And so therefore there's always a lot of sufferings, whether you are famous or infamous. And if you are infamous or not famous, and there's a suffering of not being that. And if you are famous, then again there's a suffering of being that, right? Of suffering of being famous.
어떻게 봐다 두마 세야 돼. 가지 마지 쳐라 쳐게 두마 추와라 추게 두마 그거다 요야 말이야.
And so the suffering, is always there. As long as we're in cyclic existence, there's always suffering. The suffering. If you're a great person, you have the suffering of being a great person. If you're just an ordinary small person, then you have also suffering according to that.
그래. 난 누수에 가서 때다가냐 네가 갔다나 지 소소 몰았다 이래. 소소를 지 내가 지야야 돼. 파다와 있나? 강이 매우 손은 통과를 했어. 나 다 진이. 다 십자가 계절을 나와야나 내가 참아도 아니야 그랬어.
So when you look, from outside, people, everybody, at others, they all look very comfortable. They all have, a house to live in, cars to drive, the jobs, that place, and so forth. But then if you look inside, everybody has these problems. So everybody has some kind of thing that's missing in their life. So the problem here, problem there, and so forth. So there's always some kind of problem and suffering in everybody's life.
어떤지 얘가 누가 시바치 스타 선지 좀 되는 거 다무도 송을 누가 시바치.
So that's very important. First, to understand the suffering. So that's why Buddha said first understand the suffering.
어떤 놈도 나사로다 다무 나사도 시오치고 누가 대치 빼대래서 와.
So just like if we are sick, first we have to find out, what is the disease that's causing this sickness.
다 나사들 번 시사만 더니 다 멤버 따기도 왔어. 다 나사들 자야 두든도 나사들 제가나 나사들 제가네 랩샤. 칼라산이래 와도 아니 지금 둘러 건담을 해야 되고 로탕을 가와서 제대로 간내도 따기도 왔어. 나사들 가는
And then once they find out about the disease, then it's this kind of disease. So once you find out that, then doctor will say, what caused that disease? Is it because of the way you eat, or because of the kind of food that you ate, or because of the way you wear the clothes and something? So whatever caused that disease, then you find out that cause.
아니 다들 대학에 들었다 내 마산 소소 가슈체 칼라 강강도 사주면도.
And then when the doctor finds out that it's this because of this food, that food, and that's what's causing the disease, then they will ask you not to eat those kind of foods. So even if those most favorite foods that you like most, you still have to give up because of that, right?
And 남주 가서 다다가 마사지 칼라데 남주 무사히 칼라지 치료요 말이. 그러니까 남주 무사히 칼라데 딩글어서 될 말이. 마사사야데 남주 소소 가시고 제가 칼라데 했어.
So the most of the food that doctor will ask you to avoid, will not be the food that you don't like, right? It will be the food that you like most. So the food that you like most will be asked to be avoided. And that's obvious. That's because we liked it. We ate that too much of that. That's what caused the problem. And so then once we find out what is the cause of that, even though that cause is something that we like so much, that we know that cause, that thing is causing the disease. Therefore, even though there's something very much we like, we still give it up.
Right? This particular Westerns, we Tibetans, if doctor said that we don't care much, we just jump and eat, we don't stop. What the by that Karadana Nasa the she, that Nasa get the Kawana, that Nasa not jet me also the was, Nasa you jet me also the was.
And so once we understood the suffering of the disease, then we look for the cause of that disease or the suffering, and then we try to avoid or eliminate that cause. And then now we have to find out the cause of that disease or the suffering. Now we understood the suffering, what are the suffering? So then we have to find out the cause of the suffering. So what is the cause of the suffering? Whether there is the cause for the suffering or not. If there is, what is it prominent or impermanent? If it's impermanent, can it be eliminated or not? We can find out in that way. And so in general, the main cause for all the suffering that we experience are the three poisonous delusions: the attachment, the hatred, and ignorance. And so if we don't want to experience any suffering, then we have to reduce the cause of those sufferings, the three poisonous delusions. We should minimize the attachment, we should minimize the hatred, we should minimize ignorance. So when we talk about the attachment, it's not necessarily only the sexual attachments, right? So it says, I like this thing, I like that thing, and I want to keep it for me, I cannot give it up, and so forth. So those things, you are having attachment towards them. And then the anger is pretty obvious, right? That gives a lot of suffering, problem to us. So once we fall under the control of this anger, then everything kind of goes, gets apart, right? Like in the case of the boy and girl, who are so attached to each other, they can't separate. They can't live separate even for a minute, even though they have that kind of strong attachment. But then when they get angry towards each other, they just don't want to see each other anymore, and they want to get rid of each other. So that's because of the anger, right? So when you become angry with that person, then you don't want to be with that person anymore. And then also there are other kind of delusions like pride causes many harms to us. And so when we have pride, we always think we are the that's where they're right. And then we always think that, when people don't agree with us, we think, because of the pride, we think, oh, they don't listen to me, they don't agree with me, and therefore I don't like them, and so forth. And then we, gets into a fight or disagreements.
So anyway,
3 positive solutions are the main cause of all the sufferings in the cyclic existence. So we should, if we want to be free from cyclic existence and free from all the sufferings, then we should try to minimize or completely eliminate these delusions. So normally when we're not in that situation, to get angry or to get frustrated, then we think, oh yes, then I can practice patience. I can be patient. I can avoid getting angry and so forth. But then when we fall into the situation we can't control, we just get angry and then fight or shout at other people, right? And so of course you have to practice first, to practice the patience while you're not angry. But then the real patience should be generated or practiced at the time when somebody provokes you to become angry. So at that time you don't become angry. So that's practicing patience. And because we follow these delusions all the time, the detachment, anger, or ignorance, and so forth, and according to that we engage in action, and as a result of that action we always experience sufferings. And so, for example, let's say the doctor said you ate too much greasy food, therefore, you're having this kind of disease or suffering, pain. And then, if you want to be free, you should avoid eating too much of greasy food. But if you keep on eating that, then you will never be free from the disease, right? You will have more and more suffering. So just like that, Buddha has taught us what is the suffering and what is the cause of the suffering that we're experiencing. And he said the cause of the suffering is the attachment, anger, ignorance, and you should avoid that. But we don't listen to Buddha, we just keep on generating those minds more and more. Therefore, we end up experiencing all these sufferings endlessly. Like in the case of people here in the United States, they follow the rules so much, right? So if you were to follow the advice of the Buddha, just like you follow the rules of this country, I think by next year you'll be a very different person. So we know that attachment, anger, ignorance are bad, but then when actual time comes to avoid them, then we don't avoid, we just follow them. So as long as we don't avoid, and as long as we keep on following them, we'll always have this stream of continuous, continuum of sufferings. And so then Buddha said, first understand the suffering, then you find out the cause of the suffering, the origin of the suffering. And then once you find that out, then you abandon it. So abandon the origin. And then once you find out the disease, then you check where it came from, what caused the disease, And then if you find out the cause of the disease, and then you see whether the cause can be eliminated or not. Can that cause be eliminated or not by taking medicine or so forth, right?
근데 다 담보 동아치 되는 근준이 셔더라고. 다 대리 동아도 근준이 동아서야 돼. 아니 딱 근준서야 돼. 고아제니 그래. 결과. 아니 동아도 다 인정을 잡아서.
And so these two, the first two truths, the true suffering and true origin, they are the cause and effect of each other. So the true suffering is the effect, the result, and the origin is the cause.
어떻게 다등이 가서 남배 취취 되고 있나? 빠자달라서 이들 빠자리다 되니래서 동아도만 그래서 빠자래서 넣어서래서.
So all the teachings of the Buddha can be included or divided into two, what is to be abandoned and what is to be cultivated. So these two, the first noble truths, are the one to be abandoned.
다이나 빠 내려 빠도 말인데 다 근주세티 아니 가서 근주세티 빠면 다 나사대 자야와 하고 와서 좀 맨땅에 왔어. 근데 이자 아니 근주세티 빠야 되는데 다네 대빵이 빠와시 빵 당에 가가지고 시간도 꼭 빠야 되고세. 아니 다못 봐서 돼. 소스마데 말해서 대빵 빠와라 못 봐서 돼.
And so once you find out that it can be abandoned, it can be eliminated, then where you check it by seeing whether it can be eliminated or not. Is there any kind of being who has eliminated it? And then when you find out that Buddha or Arhats who have eliminated these delusions, then you say, oh, it can be ceased. And so then the third Buddha taught about the true cessation.
그런데 대빵에 그런데 대빵하는 점이 좋아요. 시원해서 아니 가서 대빵에 담시를 왔어.
And so, because you can see the result, which is achieved through abandoning that, and therefore we see now, oh, there's the possibility. So, I can try to avoid and abandon that too. We can think like that.
배나 먼저 담보 로조 지역에다 PhD 로조 정신이 말이나 PhD 드리디 랭고 쌈네 드리디 옆에 학 권행한 로조 지역에 왔어.
So, if you're going for PhD, then first you have to know, oh, there is such kind of degree there. So once we know that, then you go for that. Without knowing that, you will not go for that, right?
어떤지 이사 다 근주 보면 보면 오바세지 여바 학교 진 보면 예사를 쌈네 다 대빵이 탑기를 했대요, 그죠? 탑기를 봐.
And so then once you find out that there is a true cessation, which is free of all the sufferings, free of all the origins and all the sufferings, that if there is such kind of cessation, then how do I achieve that? So then now you have to look for the means or path to achieve that true cessation.
배 쳐서마다 아니 멤버가 내 학교 사왔지, 내가 제대 학교 왔지, 내 좌야 학교 왔지, 다 가지고 다 맨다 보고 그랬더니 나도 가는 거 매고 왔어.
So once you have found out the disease, you have found out the cause, and then that cause can be eliminated. Once you find out that cause can be eliminated, or the disease can be cured, the cause of that disease can be eliminated. Then you say, what kind of medicine should I apply to avoid that, to eliminate that cause, to cure the disease.
소소 나사기 남이 등어들아 탑에 쳤다 자자기 아주 수번 때때 꼬나가서 고사면 도와.
So in order to cure the disease, even if doctor takes some part of our body, we don't mind that, right?
제 남주이나 아니 수보지에도 파쇼 아니 나도 동발아야 지 가서 스리다로 직다가 나도 고사면 도와.
And so, let alone taking part of the body, like cutting it off and so forth. Even if somebody stare at your face, you get angry, right?
Right? It's why you looking for me? Because this morning I make a lot. For the purpose of people looking at me very nice, right? But if really the people looking at me angry, we don't know we are doing what's doing. We know purpose of that, right? Nice girls, makeup, some people white, some people black, Purpose the people see very nice, very beautiful, very handsome. But if people doesn't watch, how can they see? But really the people can watch them. Why are you looking for me? You're a very strange guy. But this is just a joke, okay? And what do you call it? Oh, what I talk about? Now do you see? I'm getting old. He really forgot. today that country nada try or she was any maybe mental nada try maybe I'm sorry say mental was.
And so when the doctor finds out that there is a disease and it can be cured, then he will give the medicine, right? if he knows he can be cured, then he will say, I'm sorry. Right?
They don't give medicine. They just give painkiller. Keep you alive. Then the ta not to tower. Ta ya dunga no shivachi. Dunga jete no shivachi. Ta dunga jete pa yo was not hakone. But that can power is. Ta tabji can cover over is na. Oh, ta chana. Ta lamdesa gungo is. And ta shiva. The shiva is one. Lamdesa is one.
So then, once you find out, once you understood what is the suffering, and to find out what is the cause of the suffering, and to find out that there is a cessation, for their suffering, then you look for the way to bring that cessation. How do I cease all these sufferings, or the origin of suffering? And then that method, to achieve that is called the true path. And so then the actual the path, the true path, actual true path, would be the the wisdom realizing emptiness directly within the continuum of the Arya beings, and so that is the actual true path, that actually eliminates all these delusions and the sufferings and the origin of suffering and so forth. But the similar to that, in our case, the practice that we can do to avoid some kind of suffering would be the practice of abandonment, and virtuous actions, and so forth. And practicing all this, the six perfections, as much as we can, like practicing to be patient and so forth. So if we are patient and don't get angry, then we'll not have so much problem, right? So can the patience and anger be generated at the same time, in one person's mind at the same time? It's not possible, right? So those two are what? They're directly contradicting with each other, right? So whenever the anger arises, the patience is suppressed. And then when the anger and the patience is manifesting, then it doesn't allow the anger to manifest. So if you don't get angry, then we will not get into too much trouble.
Right? Today that taking chebe, kajeta, zowa, shamba, inche, shanchu sem to comba ina, that can call a title is, and Motesa took a pretty about took a and so if you practice like that, those kind of positive attitudes, like the patience, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and so forth, and then eventually, through the practice of the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, then you'll be able to achieve the true cessation. So now you understood what are the Four Noble Truths, right? The Four Noble Truths are the basis of Buddha's teachings. So there isn't anything, any practice of abandonment or cultivation that is not included in the Four Noble Truths. So tomorrow is the day when Buddha taught all the, Buddha taught the teaching, the Four Noble Truths for the first time. And so therefore tomorrow morning, early morning, we're taking 8 minor precepts here. So if you can calm, that would be great, because if more people there are, the more powerful the practice becomes. And then the place where we take, is very blessed place, with all these holy objects like the statues and the scriptures and so forth. So it has to be before the dawn, before the daybreak. So it's going to be pretty early, like 4:30. So that might be a little bit difficult. So, but if you can make it, it will not
disrupt your work.
아니 빠자야 니마치라다 나도 되게 빠마도 쉬우쉬우치면 말해서
And also the precepts that you keep are not that difficult to keep. That's not something that's very difficult for you to observe throughout the day.
아니 다 나도 진짜 가로다 밑에 보면 또 제대로 가지다 니마치라 아니네 나니까 니마 마시러 받아 아니 다 나방쇼 좀 말해서
And so there's this vows where you keep for 24 hours from before the sunrise tomorrow till till before the sunrise the next day. So during that time, like for the lay people, you should avoid the sexual conducts.
아니 차도 좀 말해서
And not allowed to drink alcohols.
다 대니 다 나서를 같이 근데 공다 시작하고 좀 말해서
And also should avoid dancing and singing. So don't party in the night.
No party. If someone you partner say come to partner say sorry today. But you must come to so nice.
So you can just say sorry for that one day.
아니 다 갈라디 그때 계산 시했던 뭐도 쇼자네 산이 좀 쇼자네 나니 쇼자가 사용 맞을라 내가 좀 지금도 야 산이 이거 샤라 체네 근데 뭐나 갈아치 말이야 야 나도 딱가 네 너무 소중이야 디파트를 열어서
And then there's the thing about the food. What can you eat, what cannot you eat, and when you can eat, and how much you can eat, and so forth. So, and then, I mean, the different lamas, make it different ways. So some they make it very strict, and some they make it, easy. And so some lamas say you can have breakfast, you can have lunch, but then don't have anything after the noon until the next day sunrise. After the sunrise next day. But some says you shouldn't have breakfast at all. You can only have lunch. Just before noon you have the lunch, and after that you don't have anything. So only one meal a day. And then also the food that you eat, they call it the white food, which is avoiding any kind of non-veggies like the poultry and the meat and so forth. Meat, egg, and so forth.
아니 차페 왕이 다 수술이라야 다 녀라마라 다 세대기 다 좋다 다요 말이죠.
And also you cannot wear the makeups, jewelries, and so forth. So because it involves attachment. So out of attachment you put a makeup, you put jewelries, and things like that. So you should avoid that.
다 대인처럼 셴바도 다 지나 배려 코너 요리나 가리 빠마도 그런 거 기억 말해서.
So then, other than that, I think it's not something that we do it all the time. So it's not easy. It's not difficult to not do that.
어떤지 다 지금 그 렌터와이나 같이 다 교과서를 이렇게 말해요. 다 대처를 전 사실 쫓는데 주소를 대체. 내가 가서 내 처벌했다. 나 이제 자원 문제도 계시다고 뭐 짜서 이네. 아니 이 말에 들어와.
So in the practice itself, if you can do the practice itself, it's very, very powerful, very meritorious, and you can avoid or abandon many non-virtuous actions or delusions, and you can cultivate a lot of positive actions, positive attitudes, and so forth. Just the practice itself, and doing it on that special day is even more special. On the day when Buddha first turned the wheel of Dharma. And then doing it at a place which is very special also because the place has been blessed by the presence of His Holiness the Lama and many holy beings, and also in the presence of all these holy objects like the scriptures and statues is very, very special. So anyway, so tomorrow is because of the special day. If we can do a lot of virtuous actions, that kind of multiplies by itself into much more than what we normally do. And also, we're doing it in a special place, like I said earlier. And therefore, if you can come, that would be great.
Why is it before sunrise?
다 누마트 카레 다 담승로들이 제대로 와서 지다만 좀 내외 나야 뭐 다시도 된 내외 잘했어. 이만 마시는 날 지금.
예, 잘해서 됐다. 다 루스소 잘해.
빨리 루스라는 나 대패 인생한테 라이브
I don't know exactly what is the benefit, but I think that's kind of became like the custom, in the Vinaya and the monastic discipline rules. They made this rule, in the beginning that this is what you should take. That's what they've been following, but I don't know what's the real benefit.
아니 시즌은 쇼잉하고 제가 아니 메테야를 봤어요. 아니 개워 같이는 개워 또 치우치다.
Other than the benefit, I don't know, of your mind being more alert, your mind, because you had a good rest in the night, and so your mind is more alert and your body is well rested, and also they say that when sun rises, your desires develop also. So, and if you do that before that, they'll be more pure.
아니 사실 좀 내대 아직 이만 마시는 거는 상기가
And also, I don't know if it's for that reason, but Buddha gained enlightenment just before the sunrise on that day.
어떻게 다 간신 쇼갱하고 시시전에 쇼갱하고 야라는 직접에는 르빠다야. 자주야 성의 펜도 들어서.
So, but in general, like I said, your mind is more alert, your body is well rested, your mind is fresh, so it's easier to do at that time. Other than that, I don't know if there's any other benefits. Or any other reasons, yeah.
Are we allowed to dance and sing by ourselves tonight?
Tonight?
Yeah.
Today is okay. You haven't taken the precept today, right? You're taking precept tomorrow, so today is okay.
I'm taking the precepts tomorrow?
If you take. Are you saying in general, or are you saying after you have taken the precept?
No, I was saying tonight.
Yeah, you can. It's up to you.
You don't need to have a lama, she was telling me.
Only for the first time. First time you have to go.
So you can have a lama teacher before.
A lama?
Yes. So you have to come tomorrow, and then you can take it up. Yes, he said your precepts tomorrow. Or is it that so you can speak the
Yes, and the lama don't show. The lama big vessel. Lama call it. That's okay.
Didn't know he was a lama.
So, of course, it's up to oneself, whether to take the precept or not. But once you take the precept on that day, only for that day, you should not do that, because you have taken precept means like you made a promise yourself. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And if you do that, then that's breaking your promise, breaking your precept. So that becomes non-virtuous actions. Especially the teacher.
I think maybe today we skip this.
So anyway, the Four Noble Truths is very important, which you talked about, right? So if we understand about the Four Noble Truths, then we will know what are to be abandoned and what are to be cultivated. So the aggregate that we have, right? Let's say it's not suffering, but it's in the nature of suffering. Let's say in the nature of suffering. So I'll explain later what you mean by that. So the reason why it's in this nature of suffering is because it's it's under the control of the karma and delusions. And so whatever kind of body we have, it's through the power of the karma, right? We cannot make a choice. We cannot say, oh, I want to have a tall body. I want to have a handsome body. I want to have a beautiful body. We can't choose that, right? And so whatever karma that we have created, depending on that, either we'll have a tall body or short body or ugly body or handsome body, and so forth. So it all depends on karma. So therefore, it is powered by karma. So, for example, if we sow a seed of apple and then the tree grows from that, whether the tree gives good fruit or not depends how well you have sowed the seed and how well you take care of the tree and so forth, right? So some people, so therefore now some people are tall, some people are short, some people are handsome, some people are ugly, and so forth. These are all because of our karma, right? The individual's karma. So if you want to have a beautiful body, beautiful look, then you have to create a cause for that. And the cause for that is practicing patience. And then also if you want to become wealthy, of course, working hard and so forth is good. That's just a condition, but the real cause is the practice of generosity. If you want to become rich, then you should practice generosity. So, it really depends on the karma and delusion, right? Depending on what kind of karma we've created, depending on what kind of delusions we have, our body changes in that way, right? So even if we don't want to grow old, we grow old. Even if we don't want to fall sick, we fall sick. So it all because of the karma. So it's nothing that we can, nothing that we can do. That's not in our hand at all. It's all, ruled or powered by the karma and delusion. And then this body also, like the aggregate, this body is also impermanent. It doesn't last forever. It perishes or disintegrates moment by moment. So what is the most precious for us? Is it our body or is it our life? Which one is more precious for us? So is it your partner? Is it your house? Is it your car? Or is it your jewelry? What is the most precious thing for us?
Life.
For each student, life? Soul.
Or loving kindness attitude.
What?
A loving kindness attitude.
So that's the most precious thing for us? For individuals. Yes, in terms of the practice, that's the thing. But like normally, what do we think is most important thing for us? I.
It just depends on your attachment. Some people are attached to wealth, some people are attached to their ego, some people are attached to reputation, some people are attached to other individuals.
That's right, yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, depends on attachment. So yeah, so of course that attachment which comes from basically the I, right? Thinking about I, or based on that I or ego, grasping at that ego I, and then it says from the I then comes the my life, my body, my friend, my children, and so forth. So all this comes from that, and then we go for that because it's most important for us. So anyway, so this the body, the aggregate that we have, is in the nature of suffering, and also is impermanent. it disintegrates moment by moment. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't stay the same all the time. It grows older and older, and then eventually it dies. So it will be no longer there one day. So therefore, it's impermanent.
아니 못 말이지. 다 대주지 나고 동화를 해서 그랬어. 또 동화 대주지 나고 동화다. 간세 아니 저다 깨나 제세다 저셔버려. 대라 맞아 봐요. 나와 말이지.
And also this idea is empty, of existing from its own side, or from its own by itself, existing by itself. It has to depend on many things for it to exist, right? As the cause, the condition, and so forth. Without those things, it will not be there by itself. So it is empty of existing, existing by itself, or by empty of existing without the help of others.
아니 뭐또 다음에 근데 다음에래서 가르다 말도 나한테 저거 말해서
and also it is not it doesn't have a self. It's selfless. It doesn't exist the way it appears.
근데 나서 소소 지체다 소소 가와도 지체다 뭐 얘기 말해서
For example, like if we look for ourselves, I said I, where am I? What is I? And if we look for that, we'll not be able to find.
무슨 얘기를 난 루시 뭐야 무슨 거야 무슨 거야 치나라 냠지다 건도 야시도 말했어 야시.
And so, do you think we can find the I? Anyway, there's a story about these three guys. And they were looking in the lake, and there was a fish right in the lake. And then they all three people, they all see the fish. They all see the fish.
And that 건도 게 대신나 건도다 야를 세야게 잘했어.
And then they thought of killing or catching or killing the fish.
다 건도는 다 세야가 쏟지 다 쏟을 가와야지. 다 야가 쏟을 가도 건도 채워야 말했어.
Sin.
다 건도 세고 다 세야라 쏟지 다 쏟을 가와야지 건도 채워야.
And so then they thought of killing the fish. If you want to kill the fish, kill means to take the life of it, right? So if you want to take the life of it, where's the life of it? Where's the fish's life? So they were looking for the life. They want to take the life, right? So what's the life? Then the one said, the life is in the head of the fish. The one said, it is on the stomach, in the stomach. So the other said, it has to be on the tail. And so they couldn't come to the agreement, saying, where is the life of that fish? And so because they were not able to decide among themselves, so they went to check one of the elder in the village. And so they went to ask this elder, where is the life of the fish? And so they might, if they have betted, one saying that it's in the head, one saying it's in the stomach, one saying it's in the tail. So if they have betted, and then the village elder says, it's in that, then the other will lose. So they might get into a fight. And so, what do you think the skillful elder might have said? So then, in order to make them all happy, he said, if it's a golden fish, it's a goldfish, then it's on the head. If it's a silver fish, it's on the tail. If it's other kind of fish, then it's in the stomach. So now none of them win or lost, right? So they all were happy, and then when they went back, the fish has gone already, and it has escaped, so they were not able to kill it.
This is joking. This is you don't find for us.
Right, in a similar way, if you look for the eye, you will not find the eye, right? Where am I?
Somebody say eye here. Somebody say eye here. Right? People say eye here because when we think Here's something forgot to be over here. You know, the scientists are here. Because scientists. Because the reason is that whatever we thinking we do something, they always already here, just automatically. I don't know if you guys. Okay, then maybe we can do last question. One more question.
One more question, please. Do you have a copy of the question?
Do you have any other questions? If no question, please have your homework. Last week.
Okay, the first question, why is Buddha Shakyamuni kinder than the other Buddhas?
Other Buddhas, right?
Understood? Understood the question? Yeah.
Okay, you understand what they talk about? Why is Buddha Shakyamuni kinder than other Buddhas? Any idea? Yeah.
Because he was willing to help us even in our worst state. Even though we are terrible people, he was willing to help us, and so he was kinder than anybody else, any other Buddhas.
Good. You guys any other? Anyway, her question is right. Her answer is right. So, yes, Sanji, tell me about you tweet you can answer. 담대히 미 들어져 가라야 투팅을 말하고 이거 가라 산지 좀 되겠다. 저 엄마시가 마티가 마산신 배이 특별한 같은데 이제는 같이 오래스.
Yeah, so at this time, it's after the degeneration, when people have so much delusions and so much desire, right? No contentment and so forth. At that time, it's so difficult to subdue the sentient beings. So when they had a meeting, like a meeting in the Buddha, among the Buddhas, who's going to go at that time and who's going to go at that time, and all the Buddhas chose other time when it was easier to subdue the sentient beings. And during this time, no Buddhas chose. So, but Buddha Shakyamuni had a very strong compassion for beings of this time, and he chose at that time to come and benefit the people, the beings when their lifespan is about 100 years old. And so therefore, Buddha Shakyamuni is considered as more kinder than other Buddhas.
Okay, good. Her answer is correct. Okay, second question.
Okay, why is the Guru who teaches us what is to be abandoned and what is to be cultivated kinder than Buddha Shakyamuni?
You got it? Okay, who's giving answer? Okay, yeah.
The teacher, our teacher now is kinder than Buddha Shakyamuni because if we're not enlightened yet, then we really must be the dregs, and therefore our teacher is still here helping us, and he's kinder than the Buddha.
Do you guys agree with this?
So Buddha Shakyamuni came in this world, right, about 2,500 years ago. So none of us here have met him, right? So even though he taught that time, but if his teaching was not passed down through the teachers, right, then it will not come to us, right? And so therefore it comes directly to us through our teacher, right? Our teacher who is teaching us, through that person who received this teaching. Therefore, the person, our teacher, who taught us that is kinder than Buddha Shakyamuni.
Okay, then?
I lost the last question. What is the meaning of subduing one's mind?
Okay. This is the Tibetan word.
Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teachings of the Buddha. Right?
All the time, everyone decide. Okay?
To subdue the delusions.
So, good. Another? Your son? Nothing say?
Yeah.
Yeah, 가지. 묘모 셈나 묘모도 셈이 그가 너무 추었다는 셈도 그렇어.
Yep, that's right. So, to reduce the delusion in your mind. So when you do that, less attachment, less anger, less so pride, jealousy, and so forth. So that's what we mean by subduing your mind.
나 배차셔와이나. 좀더 다시다 너무 가시겠다 코나 남자들 지금 물론 사람들이 그래서 와. 가시야 걔도 직계로 출로로 저기 다 미니 물론 사마지 그런 거 말이 얘기 말 사마. 너도 깨고 좀더 나라 출로로 저기 되게 깨는 거예요.
So there are things that are not good for us to do, right? And or good for us to do. Like if somebody's in a very bad condition or situation, we should go and help. And so, but it's not necessary that we have to help, right? So we can go and help. Or if if this is something that we should not do, then we say that doesn't matter, still do it, like that kind of thing. But and then so once you have studied about the Dharma, and then you understand what is good and what is bad, and you come to think that and this is bad, I should not do this. It's not good to do. I will not do it. I should not do it. That kind of feeling. Through practicing Dharma, you can say, I should not, let's say, harm others. Right? Harming others is not good, so I should not harm others. And benefiting others is good, so I should benefit. So when you have that thought, that is what we mean by like subduing the mind. So of course, it is not possible to not cause harm to others at all, but deliberately. Right? Intentionally not causing harm to others. So just because you don't like the person or being, like the insects and so forth, just because you don't like them, therefore you cause harm. That's not good. So of course, we kill many different ways, like by walking, by driving, by eating. Just by doing those things, we end up killing so many beings, but those are not deliberately done, so, and therefore it's not that bad. Anyway, so just thinking that, it's not good to get angry, so I should not get angry. Thinking like that. And when you have that kind of thought, that means your mind is subdued, a little bit subdued. And so mostly, when we get angry, we get angry towards human beings, right? So when you cause harm, you cause harm to their feeling or to their body, right? And so to cause harm to others, whatever you do, either by speaking, by typing, or by like using a knife or gun, and so forth, whatever you do, that's causing harm. So sometimes, even though we're doing with a good intention, that might end up causing harm to other people. And so we have to, before we do that, we have to see whether this will be helpful or harmful, and do it only if it's helpful. So even though we think from our side, we think we're doing it to benefit others, but it actually may cause harm to others. And so during that time, it is very important first to analyze or to check about that. And just you know, just true with any kind of activities that we engage in. So whatever kind of activities we engage in, you know, we should first check about that.
Okay. So
anyway, so the bottom line is reducing your delusion. So that's the subject mind.
This is more difficult for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Then do you have any questions? You finished the last question?
Yeah,
That was last.
Okay. Any other questions? Yep.
I have found it very, very difficult to deal with the delusions around family members, because the intensity is so strong. Any thoughts?
Yeah.
They call it
Not just you, everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone. Even we angry with president right now. We cannot come anything with president. He's very far away. We always with our families, we can control them easily, you know.
So the people, because those people are very close to us, so it's easy for us to get into argument and fight and so forth. So it is, yeah. So when it happens, it more happens with them, with the people who are close to us, like our families. And of course, at that time, and it is important, or beforehand, so you have to practice yourself a lot, during other times, and to think of being patient with them and not shout at them and so forth, so not get into fight with them. So you have to practice, so then when the situation arises, you'll be able to control at that time.
아니, 야부살다는 다 구도야 나라도 직발했다. 요모 형한테 지원해서 삼토가 있나? 아니, 그러지 마요.
And so just, and also at that time, if we can think that, oh, just like me, they are also under the control of delusion, so they are doing it out of delusion. So. And if you think like that, then maybe anger towards them will be minimized. Yeah, something like that.
I forget who said this, but there was someone who said, if you think you're enlightened, just go back and visit your family of origin.
Yeah, good. Then they show you angry, then you show you yeah, that's correct, When you think you are very high practitioner, I'm not angry, I'm not, attachment. Then you go to desire, then you can show whatever you inside. And that's all.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true, right? They're always the family has to all together, then sometimes, not all the time, same.
We not have same thought all the time.
All the time, Then we have to argue. Then you can show you're not with them. And then you show your delusions come rise. It's good, yeah? Okay, thank you, yeah. Good, yeah. Good questions. Good answers also. Good. Yeah.
Yes, we're told not to associate too closely with people who criticize or have a grudge against our teachers or towards their practice, and because it can damage our karma, our samaya, and things like that. So when we're in a situation where we have to associate, like we kind of have no choice, we have to associate with people who are against or they have a grudge against our teachers or our practice, how do we deal with them?
맞아, 다 소소리 얘기한다. 소소리 냠내는 너가 되는 미지더라. 다 얘기한 걸로 빼려고 한다. 특정함이라. 남녀단에 소소 냠내는 너가 되는 미지 소리 저 여전님도 싫어. 되려 말했어. 그 사람들 싫어 되려 뭐 되는 되려. 다 이나 딱 맞아 안 돼. 차봐요. 난 가르쳐 버렸어.
Maybe we keep it together. 다 맞아도 저와야 같이.
맞아, 저는 같이. 나 건님도 내 민님도 다 했을 때네 아마 그래서 그러. 나 건님도 맞아도 잖아 같이.
그걸 놔야 되는데 얘는 바탕하셨어.
Just don't listen to him. Whatever he says, let it go. Yeah. Listen from one ear and let it go from other ear.
Yeah, I'm serious, you know. You know, we angry, you know, someone said, we keep this serious for us, right? He said, because they told me that, they do for me. Then we angry, right? We just doesn't pay attention. Then they go away.
And then you don't get angry.
Well, I mean, like, for example, if we have, like, commitments to particular teachers that it said that we shouldn't associate really with people who are against them, manage samadhi, things like that. So how do we deal with, especially family members are
Oh,
against,
I see.
like if family, like I have family members who are kind of against Buddhism and things like that. So how would I deal with that, especially if I can't help associating with them?
또 대화도 좀 말아. 대화도 좀 내나다 파츠도 있는 여러 개거라. 대전에 그렇게 알았어요. 거기서나 지난 대교와 맞았어. 대교도 말아라. 대화에는 딱 파츠도 일단 소소 개개보다 두자 담을 채워야 소소한테 이게 두자를 사면 연가라. 대전에 있는 데서 마사로 키야 말아.
가지 소중하나 대로 맞잖아. 빠져 가지는 지는 거 개념이었어.
So the reason why you should not be associating with this kind of people is because they might influence you, you know, to think bad about your teacher. That's because they say so much bad things about your teacher, you must say, oh, maybe they're right, you know. Maybe my teacher is really bad, so I should not have listened to him. I should not go to receive teaching from him. I should not, you know, do this practice and so forth. So that influence, you know, can come from them. But that's the reason why you should not be associated with them. Other than that, it's okay. Associating itself is no problem. The problem is the influence, you know, that you might get from them is the problem. As long as you don't get them, associating with them is no problem.
So if they're not influenced, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. So if you live with them, eat with them, stay with them, you know, laugh with them, eat with them. But if you then listen to what they say, then that's okay.
The only reason why I'm asking was Precepts Rinpoche said in the Heart of the Path that even if you share dinner with somebody who criticizes your guru, it's still kind of negative karma.
So again, that's the thing, you know. So that influence, you know. So because ordinary people like ourselves, we can't control that, right? When we can't avoid that, you know, we can get influenced very easily, you know. So therefore, we avoid that kind of place or that kind of people, you know. And so, but if the influence, if we not be influenced by that, then it's okay. We can be there. Are you, you know, like, you know, prone to that kind of influence? Then better not be there, you know. But if you are not, then, you know, higher level practitioner, they can be there, no problem. But ordinary people like ourselves, we should not be there, you know. We'll get affected by that, you know. So therefore, you know, that's why I avoid it for us.
It's mainly just protect the mind.
Yes.
You know, the kind of part to jam, taking the yawa was.
And it's that, you know, this year the poet and the rest of the that's such a beautiful, that's such a
that general should have been Cadina chocolate, Cadina China,
the Nablusia, who had been shooting in Damchoe, should 통과에 남아서 그냥 내 포를 해서 제가 되게 대단한 데 지겨 먹었어요.
그때 그러고. 되게 좀 포여서.
제대로 맞은 거 알아.
되게 안 맞은 거 알아. 진짜 소소대로 말해 가지고. 나도 대단히 내가 배웠어.
So yeah, of course, in the, like what Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, if it's somebody who has lapsed his guru devotion, you know, and if you're doing even from his hand, then you're gonna get polluted by that. That's true in the case. If you know that, then just avoid that. That's the only way. Yeah, like don't listen, don't you know. Use the things that he used it. But there are many cases like that, and so you know, in that case, of course, you should try to avoid that.
So people in my family don't have guru, so it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That's different.
아니 아무튼 삼성 출루도 드리고 라 계셔도 되게 많이 깨면 되면은 되게 이방 싸우죠.
And also, you know, sometimes we end up, you know, like arguing with other people about our religion, right? If someone says, "Oh, Buddhism is not good," you know, then you have to check why he's saying that, you know. And if you get so emotional about that, and then you get into fight, that's not good. So this is okay. If you think so, you know, if you think so, you can just live like that. Just say that and just live like that. Don't get into argument with that. And so, of course, you know, Buddhism is for us, right? For us who believe in Buddhism, we who believe in Buddhism thinks that Buddhism is good for them, but it's not necessarily good for us, anybody, right? So there are people who don't who cannot accept Buddhism beliefs, for them it's not good. So you can't go and say that, oh, it's good and good, and so force on them, right? So that's not possible to do that. And therefore, it doesn't matter if they don't agree with that, then that's up to them. Just leave like that.
Okay?
Thank you, Geshe.
Okay, look at that. Then we start. Thank you.
We'll start with the Thanksgiving module on page 39. Saji Kyuti Jitsong Yukong Tong Mirati Chini Legyan Padi Sami Jing Juni Ke